everyone, welcome back to Success Care 24. So today I have come up with some of the questions from the topic time, speed and distance. It is one of the most important topic from your exam point of view, isn't it? So before proceeding further, let's discuss the basic first. So what is the basic? So we know that speed is calculated as how much distance traveled divided by total time taken to cover that distance, isn't it? So total time taken. Okay. So speed is calculated as distance traveled by total time taken. So d by t. So from here we can also write how we can write. So distance is equal to speed into time. Okay. Also we can write time is equal to distance by speed, isn't it? So these are the basic formulas that we are going to use to solve the questions from this topic. Okay. So from here we can draw another conclusion. What are the conclusion? Let's see. Okay. So we know that speed is equal to distance by time. So if this is so, that means speed and time are inversely proportional to one another. Alright. Also, time is inversely proportional to speed. That means speed and time are inversely proportional and vice versa. What does that mean? That means if speed increases, then time taken is less, isn't it? More the speed, lesser is the time taken, and more the time, that means lesser is the speed. That means when one quantity increases and the respective other quantities decreases, then these two are said to be inversely proportional to one another. And if one quantity increases, also the other quantity also increases, then these two quantities are said to be directly proportional to each other, isn't it? So from here we can see distance is directly proportional to time, or distance is directly proportional to speed. That means more the speed, more the distance covered. Okay. So that means one increases, also the other increases. That is why they are directly proportional. But when speed increases, we take lesser time to cover that distance. Okay. So that is why they are inversely proportional to one another. So these are the basics that we are going to need to solve the questions from this topic. Okay. So let's move to the questions. Okay. So your first question is given as Abhishek drives his bike at a speed of 150 km per hour. What is the distance covered by him in 3 hours? So here what you are given? You are given speed. So speed is equal to, okay, fine. Speed is equal to 150 km per hour. Okay, and time is 3 hours. So what do we need? We know the formula. So formula for distance is what? Distance is equal to speed into time. So just multiply. This is one of the most basic question, isn't it? This is the simplest one. So speed is 150, and here you need to check whether the units are in same or not, whether the units are same or not. Yes, of course units are same. It is in kilometer per hour and time is also in hours. That means speed, that means units are in same dimension. That is why distance is equal to speed and time, and we can calculate by directly multiplying speed with time, and we will get 450 meter. So from here kilometer per hour and hour, so hour will get cancelled and we get distance as 450 meter. Okay, so this is one of the simplest question. All right, so we are just using the formula distance is equal to speed into time. Okay, so now let's move to the next question. So your next question is, so Uday travels half of his journey by train at the speed of 120 km per hour and the rest half by car at 80 km per hour. What is the average speed? Okay, now here you are asked to find average speed, isn't it? So for the average speed, you need to remember one thing. When distance travel is same, that means let us say from point A to point B, this is your x kilometer distance. Okay, similarly from B to C, also the distance is x kilometer. That means AB, distance of AB is also equal to distance of BC. So for such case, we can calculate average speed by using the formula average speed is equal to twice of V1 into V2 by V1 plus V2, where V1 is the speed to cover the distance x, okay, and V2 is the speed to cover the distance BC. Okay, so we can use the formula for the average speed, this. So what is the main thing to remember here? The main thing to remember here is that to apply this formula of average speed, you need to travel the same distance. Okay, you need to travel the same distance. That means you can also consider that, let us take from your home to school or college, your distance is, let us take x kilometer per hour. So while you are coming from home to school, you are covering x kilometer distance, isn't it? And while you are going from school to home, you are also covering same distance, x kilometer distance. So for such case, we can apply the formula of average speed. That means if coming from home to school, you are moving with a speed of V1, and from going to school, okay, and while from school to home you are moving with speed V2, then you can use the formula for the average speed as this. So the main thing to remember here is your distance traveled must be same. So when your distance traveled is same, then you can apply this formula for average speed, twice V1 V2 divided by V1 plus V2. So we're going to use the formula here, since here in the question you are given that Uday travels half of his journey. So if this is the whole journey, then half of his journey is covered by train and the other half is covered by what? Car. So that means they are traveling the same distance, isn't it? So since they are traveling the same distance with different speed, so speeds are 120 km per hour and 80 km per hour. So that is why we can use the average speed formula here. So what is the average speed formula? So average speed is equal to twice of V1 V2. So twice of 120 into 80 divided by 120 plus 80. So from here we get 0, 200, and here 2 into 12, 120 into 80. So 0, 0 gets cancelled out, 2, 2 gets cancelled out, and we will get 96. So 96 km per hour. So do we have the option? Yes, we have the option B. So 96 km per hour would be the answer. Okay. So the main thing is we can use this formula. Why? Because they are covering the same distance. Okay. Alright. So let's move to the next question. Okay. So your next question is, speed of Karan is 40 km per hour and speed of Arjun is 60 km per hour. Okay. So you are given the speeds of Karan and what? Who? Arjun. Okay, Karan and Arjun. Mere Karan Arjun aayenge, isn't it? Okay, fine. So you are given the speed of Karan and Arjun as Karan's speed is 40 km per hour and Arjun's speed is equal to 60 km per hour. Now, what is the ratio of time taken by each to cover the same distance? This is one of the simple question, isn't it? One of the simplest question. Why? Because you are given the speeds. So from here, what you can calculate? You can calculate the ratios of speed. So ratios of speeds of Karan and Arjun would be what? So 40 is to 60. So from here, you will get the ratios as what? 2 is to 3, isn't it? So the speed ratios of speeds of Karan and Arjun is 2 is to 3. So if I know the ratios of speed, so from here we can calculate the ratios of time taken. Why? Because speed and time are inversely proportional to each other. Speed and time are inversely proportional to each other. I have already told you. So if this is so, then if I get the ratios of speed, then we can inverse those ratios and we'll get the ratios of time. Okay. So from here we will get the ratios of time as, so time taken by Karan and Arjun would be how much? So inverse ratios of speed. Inverse ratios of speed. So from here we can calculate the LCM. So LCM would be 6. So 6, if the LCM is 6, then divide that 6 by 2, we will get 3, and divide that 6 by 3, we will get 2. So that means the time ratio would be 3:2. Okay. So that is how you can calculate the time ratio if you are given the speeds ratio, or vice versa. If you are given the ratios of time, you can also calculate the ratios of speed, as they are inversely proportional to one another. Okay. So option number A would be the correct one. So you are given the speeds. So from here you calculate the ratios of speed and take the inverse of that ratios, and you will get the time ratios. Okay. So this is how we will solve such type of question. Okay. Let's move to the next question. Okay. So next question is given as, a car takes half of the time taken by truck to go from Lucknow to Bombay. So the car and truck, you are given car and truck, and what is given? The time ratios of car and truck. So time ratios of car and truck is given as how much? Car takes half the time taken by the truck. So if car takes half the time taken by truck, so time taken by car is equal to twice of, car takes half the time. Oh yes, so twice of time taken by, no, it's different. So a car takes half the time taken by truck to go from Lucknow to Bombay. A truck takes 20 hours to go for the same journey. What is the speed of truck if the speed of car be 120 km per hour? So we are given the speed also. So from here we can take the ratios of time, then we can inverse that ratio, and we'll get what? The speed ratio. Okay. So from here, the ratio between car and truck is 1:2, isn't it? So this is the time ratios for car and truck. So since car take half the time taken by truck, so the ratios of time taken by the car and truck would be 1:2. If this is so, then what would be the speed ratio by truck and car? So the speed ratio of car and truck would be 2:1, because we have just what? Done the inverse of it. Take the inverse ratio of time, you will get to what? Speed ratios. So this would be the speed ratios of car and truck. Now you are given speed of the car be 120 km. So if the speed of the car be 120 km, that means 2 ratio must be equal to how much? 120 km per hour, isn't it? 2 ratio must be equal to 120 km per hour. Then 1 ratio would be how much? So from here 2 ratio is equal to 120 km per hour. So from here 1 ratio would be 60 km per hour. Okay. And what is the speed ratio for truck? The speed ratio for truck is 1, of course. So that is why the speed of the truck would be 60 km per hour. Okay. So you are asked to find what is the speed of the truck. The speed of the truck would be 60 km per hour. Is this much easy? Once you know the concept, the questions become this much easier to solve, isn't it? So you just need that ratios of time or speed. You can calculate the speed or time, vice versa, because speed and time are inversely related to each other. Once you know this concept, you can solve this kind of questions very easily. Okay, so what we have done here, you are given the time ratios of car and truck as 1:2. So from here you take the inverse ratios and you get the ratios of speed of cars and trucks. So from there you just equate the 2 ratio must be equal to 120 km per hour, since you are given the speed of the car be 120 km per hour. So from here 1 ratio would be 60 km per hour, and the speed ratio of that truck is 1 itself, isn't it? So that is why the speed of the car is 60 km per hour. Okay. All right. So let's move to the next question. Okay. So Shweta, when increases her speed from 24 km per hour to 30 km per hour, she takes 1 hour less than the usual time to cover a certain distance. What is the distance usually covered by Shweta? So Shweta, when increases her speed, so Shweta's usual speed and today's speed is given, isn't it? So Sweta usually moves with the speed of usual speed. We can write as Sweta's usual speed. So Sweta's usual speed is how much? 24 kilometer per hour. And today she increases her speed from 24 to 30 kilometer per hour. That means Sweta's today's speed is how much? 30 kilometer per hour. So from here, what do you get? You get the speeds ratios of Sweta, right? So from here, you get the speed ratios. So usual speed of Sweta by today's speed of Sweta is 24 by 30. So from here, we get the ratios of speed as 4 and 5. So this is the speed ratios of Sweta's, isn't it? So this is Sweta's usual speed, and since she increases her speed, so that is her today's speed. So the ratio between the usual and today's speed is 4:5. So if once I get this, now we can calculate what? Time ratio, isn't it? So now I can calculate the time ratios of Sweta's. So what would be the time ratio? So today's, so usual time, the ratio between usual time and today's time would be how much? It would be the inverse of this, inverse of the speed ratio. We have already known that, isn't it? So since we get the speed ratios, we can calculate the time ratios by reversing those ratios. So we get the usual time and today's time ratios as 5 by 4. Okay. Now you are given C takes 1 hour less than the usual time to cover a certain distance. Okay. So once we get the time ratios, now you are given that C takes 1 hour less. 1 hour less. So what you can do, you see in the questions you get your usual time is 5 hour and today's time is 4 hour. That means this gap, the ratios gap of time, isn't it? So what is the ratio gap of time? So there is a 1 ratio gap, and this 1 ratio gap is given as in the question 1 hour. 1 hour. क्या हम इसे इक्वेट नहीं कर सकते? ऑफ कोर्स कर सकते हैं. देखो यहाँ पे रेशियो तुम लोगों का क्या हो गया? 1 रेशियो डिक्रीज हो गया, टाइम का 1 रेशियो डिक्रीज हो गया. पहले टाइम का रेशियो था 5, अब टाइम का रेशियो है 4. दैट मीन्स तुम्हारा टाइम का रेशियो 1 डिक्रीज हो गया. दैट 1 रेशियो डिक्रीज क्यों हुआ? क्योंकि you are taking 1 hour less time. So this 1 ratio must be equal to 1 hour. So from here, what we can do? So if 1 ratio is 5 hour, then 5 ratio would be how much? 5 ratio would be 5 hour, and 4 ratio would be 4 hour. That means her usual time is 5 hour and her today's time is 4 hour. Okay. So using the ratio, we can calculate those usual time and today's time. So from here, what you are asked to find, what is the distance usually covered? So you are getting the usual time as 5 hours and your usual speed was 24 kilometer per hour. Then distance is what? Speed into time. So your usual speed is 24 and your usual time is 5 hours. So from here you will get the distance as 120 kilometer. So we have option number D. Okay. So that is how we can solve such type of questions using the concept only. The concept is speed and time is inversely proportional, speed and time are directly proportional. So those are the basic concepts which will help you solve these questions. Okay. So let's move to the next question. All right. So this is the end of the session today. So you have discussed some of the questions that could be asked in your exam. So these are the type that could be asked. So I have discussed it, and we will I will bring some of the more questions from this topic further. So thank you for the session today. All right.